Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Chilling Neigh Podcast, your premier VGC podcast. My name is Rashil, aka Konkadonk. I'm joined by Sableye. What is up, man?
Absolutely nothing. Stressing for EUIC, the usual. Absolutely nothing though. Got a lot of events to look at. I think.
Yeah, we have so we're talking, right, the week of UIC, we have some VR tours and then obviously some regionals that we've touched on a little bit, but a lot to talk about. But this is UIC is kind of our, well, did we have LAIC already? Yeah, we did, right? I feel like yeah, but this is I feel like one of the biggest EUIC, NEIC are like the two biggest events of
Yeah.
the year prior to Worlds, and this is going to be extremely important for I think a lot of people's invites. And so curious kind of first before we dive into what's been going on in the meta. How are you feeling? How has your prep been going in terms of going into UIC? Kind of what kind of things are you looking at?
I've switched teams way too many times. I don't know. I'm not feeling comfy. I'm not feeling good. But I was on Shadow Rider for a bit. Then I was on Ice Rider. You know. Then I was on maybe I should just settle in and just suck it up and run Zamazenta. I don't know. I've bounced back and forth. I don't even know what I am on at this point in time. But it'll be interesting. I feel like I could be prepping a little bit better, but it should be fun.
Kind of what I've seen on Twitter is I feel like a lot of people are kind of going back and forth between the we're so back and it's so over, and it's just kind of that oscillating meme where it's one day, even when I've been playing on ladder, one day you feel like, all right, I got up to 10th on ladder, and then the next day I think I fell out of the top 500 and dropped 300 points.
Yeah.
It is a volatile format. It's tough to prep for, and it's gonna be really interesting to see what adaptations people bring to such a huge tournament. I think our only international left in Reg G, and then I think NAIC will be whatever the new format is afterwards.
Yep.
So biggest event of Reg G since Worlds, and we have a couple of VR tours to talk about. So the first one happened last weekend. We had 235 players, and we had Terapagos versus Maridon Sneasler in finals, and Terapagos ended up winning.
Yep.
And then we fast forward to this past weekend where Terapagos got second in the tournament, and it was 201 players. Another VR tour, Coridon ended up winning. So lots to talk about, and obviously we'll link these results so that you guys can follow along what we're talking about. But open floor, what's standing out to you with these VR results, especially with someone who's been kind of prepping for UIC?
The big thing for me is actually the lack of Ice Rider in these results. I think in the first one it's one Ice Rider, and then in the second one I think there's two. It was one in top 16, and in this one that this past weekend is there's two in top 16, and that is misleading to me because this Pokemon is incredible, and every single time somebody goes, "Oh hey, this guy's on Fraud Watch," immediately after that, it's just "Oh no, you guys should not have disrespected me." It's weird, right? And obviously we had San Antonio, I believe, where we had the Tangs in finals with the back-to-back with the mirror match of Ice Riders. So
Yeah.
I can see it, and the metagame, especially when it's single restricted, is going to be, hey, these guys just won. This team's on a roll. Let's make sure we've got answers to it, right? So it's not really surprising for me to see the lack of Ice Rider. But what I'm looking at in prep here is, do I think this is a trend that's going to be kept up at EUIC, or do I think there's going to be just as much Ice Riders? I just have to be ready for it, right? So I can look at these results and I can say, hey, well, Ice Rider's bad. I don't need to prep as much for it. Or I can look at these results and say everybody else is going to go, wow, Ice Rider has an opening now, right? Especially with Coridon winning the last one. That's kind of where I'm at. What horse do I need to prep for? Obviously, you need to prep for both, right? But
Yeah.
there's been that uptick, at least when I've been practicing online. There's all kinds of Calyrex Shadow, a lot less Calyrex Ice, but is that actually what I'm going to see? And that's kind of what I hate about, this single restricted, because it's always going to bounce back and forth like that a lot more than either the double restricted or like the no restricted formats. We're going to see this kind of the rock paper scissors of a type matchup. Like, am I going to pull 7 Calyrex Ice Riders? Am I not? Fun fact, in regulation G majors, I am yet to play against an Ice Rider.
Really?
Really. I am yet to play against an Ice Rider in a regulation G major. So how much do I prep versus Ice Rider going into EUIC? Am I going to pull 8? Am I going to pull 0? I don't know.
That's pretty. I mean, that's insane feat in itself. I mean, it seems like you have the secret sauce to dodge the Ice Riders, so I guess no need to prep for it.
Okay, but the one time I do that, I'm going to pull 8 of them.
Yeah, I mean, like looking at San Antonio. I mean, so San Antonio is interesting because obviously, like, comparing a North American regional to other North American regionals is a little bit more, like, I guess, apples to apples, just because we're looking at similar pools of players. But now we're talking about, UIC, where there's going to be people from all over the world and a lot of obviously European-based players. But just looking at what it was at San Antonio, we had Cali Ice at 24%, almost 25% usage in day 2. And it was still like the second most usage in day 1, like almost 17%. But like you're saying, like, there is not much here in VR, but at the same time, like, I'm with you. Like, there is just no world where I see Ice Rider falling off that hard.
Yeah.
If at all.
But if you go back to Birmingham, which once again is a more probably true approach at looking at what's going on in the Europe scene, there were, I think, 3 of them in top 16. So, like, even then, it's still not that much.
Yeah, third most used restricted in day 2 and in day 1, actually. On day 1 behind Kali Shadow and Miraidon, and day 2 behind Miraidon and Zom. It's a weird phenomenon. I think VR tours that have been in Reg G, Cali Ice hasn't been. Like, I think Cali Ice has rarely won. And for some reason, this stupid turtle is like goated out, doing well in the VR tours and only in the VR tours.
It like, just wins online tours. That's all it does.
It's ridiculous. Like, we have so the first VR tour of February, we have Pagos in first place and in third place, and then like nowhere to be seen elsewhere at all. Like, there's just none. And then in the second one, it's in second place,
and then nowhere to be seen.
Then again,
and then never to be seen again.
Like, there's just people who are dedicated to Pagos, who like playing Pagos, and I feel like just crush these online tournaments, like these huge tournaments, and like these are not like, I mean, these are not easy online tournaments. Like these are players like Shohei Kimura was like in 4th place. We have like Simone Sanvito in 8th place. Like, and I'm sure a lot of these players that I don't even know that are like fantastic, right? There's just littered with like great players in both VR tournaments, and somehow Pagos just comes to play only in these online tournaments. I am still like, and I mean, there is a collection of like, I think, Spanish players and stuff like that do like Pagos. I know like Rios, Alex Gomez have I think consistently used Pagos. So I think there will be another situation where we could see like Pagos, 1 or 2 Pagos doing well, but like, I think this is such a fraud turtle. Like, I think this is an online turtle only, and it is not going to be nearly. I mean, not that's even showing up crazy in these tournaments. Again, nowhere to be seen outside the top 1 or 2, whatever. But I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be seen too much.
So my thought on this is, I actually think a lot of people are starting to pick back up and make iterations on CSI, right? On that Shadow Rider. And I think Pagos has a very good Shadow Rider matchup. Zamazenta's kind of fallen off a little bit as of late as well. I could actually see a fair amount of turtles doing well. Just based on pulling like 6 rounds, they're going to pull CSR, and they're just going to basically shut down your restricted, right? Now, obviously, these horses have answers to it, right? A lot of them are now paired with Urshifu and stuff like that. But I can definitely see a world where, the couple of these Terrapagos players are just going to take that gamble and say, I'm going to pull a lot of, Calyrex Shadow. The things that I'm scared of are, falling off a little bit. So I could definitely see maybe a few more and doing relatively okay at EUIC. Like I said, I don't think it's going, or like you said, I should say, I don't think it's going to go crazy. But I do think it's going to be more than you're giving it credit for. Just because Europe tends to be that balanced region, right? And a lot of these results from these Terrapagos in these online tournaments, like you got like Giulio Tarlau here, European-based player. Francesco Piopero, who won the other one with the Terrapagos, European-based player. You go to the guy that got third in that tournament, Spanish-based player. Once again, expect to see these guys at UIC. It's just based on the regional, I guess the regional variant, I guess you can call it. I don't know. But it seems to be a little bit more popular in those European regions. And I think with that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if, these top players that have been using it just say, yeah, it's a pretty good meta call. I'm going to keep using it.
That's fair. That's fair. I feel like I'm biased against the turtle. I don't know why, but
hey, I think it's garbage. I also think it's garbage. Don't get me wrong, but
do you think the best set I've seen is the one that I think like those Spanish players were running with, like Sub, Starstorm. Like that's the one that I don't know. I think is the best. We'll see how well or what does well at UIC. The other thing that I think like really stood out to me, and I saw like Simone Sanvito tweet about this, that like I mean in the first VR tour there's not as much of this, but actually no, it happened in both. Like the same standard Arubega Miraidon team continues to just be consistent, be there in top 8, in top 16. It didn't do too well obviously at San Antonio. San Antonio was very unkind to Miraidon, kind of nowhere to be seen in, at all. Oh my god, I'm looking at like the top 20 here. Like, oh my god, 1 in top 32? Wow.
I didn't realize it was that low. What's going on there?
That's pretty nuts. Yeah, that's crazy. But in the VR tours, we have Miraidon in second place. In the first tour, we have Miraidon in second place, but then that's the Blood Moon version, and then we have Miraidon Dondozo in 8th place. And then 9th place, 10th place is the same standard, like kind of Arubega Miraidon team, and then like a variation of it in 11th. And then in the second VR tour, we have it in 3rd, in 4th, in 8th. And then the Blood Moon Sneasler version in 10th. So, I mean, I think this is a team that we talked about it, a few weeks back, and I think like it's just clearly not going anywhere. And like even though it had like a really bad performance at San Antonio, I think it'll be something we see again where it's like if you don't have a team, like I was looking at, like I was feeling like, all right, like I don't know what I want to play, like I just want to play on ladder and stuff, or I want to play best of 3 ladder, and like so I even just picked it up and I was like, even when people know what's coming, even though it's like just the standard 6, like if you can pick it up and day 2 with it, and you can do really well with it, and I think we're gonna see a lot of people do that just out of sheer of like, all right, I don't even know what to play, like let me just, this is like a team that like is polished, like it is. Seems like it's been in its final form for a while now, or at least very close to it, and you can adjust based on comfort. And I think even though it had a bad performance in San Antonio, I think we're going to see it pop right back up.
Yeah, it's going to be good, and we said this in a couple other episodes as well. It's like you said right now, it's just that fine-tuned, it's that polished 6 Pokemon. It is just incredibly solid. We've seen a few variants with, the Dark Ursh instead of the Water Ursh, but overall, these 6 are pretty well, I don't want to say finalized because that feels like it's like, oh, it's no room for growth, but like overall they're really well trained, work well together, right? You could just grab this team and do well if you get the right matchups. Now, obviously, and I think in order to take this team to the next level, you are going to really, really need to know your matchups, just because everybody is going to be prepared for this six to a certain extent. But like you said, the six is just so strong. If it went out and won EUIC, I wouldn't be too shocked. I think it would be like not on my radar. I wouldn't say, yeah, this is the team that's winning. But if
Yeah,
it were to happen, I would be like, okay, kind of, yeah, checks out, Like, sure.
yeah, yeah. Agreed. It wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah.
Another one that really stood out to me is I feel like for like a short like maybe 2 weeks, like right around Birmingham time and like right before San Antonio, like all the hype was about Groudon and like the Sun team that was going around and like how great this Groudon team was, and there was two in top eight of Birmingham, and now like I haven't seen Groudon in weeks. Like I'm trying to like where is Groudon? I
Bro's
don't know.
gone.
Is it even ever gonna come back? I don't know. Like, do you see this making anyone doing really well with Groudon or like making any splash with Groudon at UIC?
I could see a couple. My flaw and my problem with Groudon actually comes from the fact that you're kind of forced to run it, in certain ways, and it's just inconsistent at doing what it wants to do. Once again, it's coming down to that precipice blades, right? And the upside you get from Groudon is great. If you're hitting your blades, it's amazing. You play versus something like a Miraidon, they can't click their electric attacks, right? You have, in theory, a very decent matchup spread across the board. But in a single restricted format, it's very tough to have your restricted that inaccurate, that inconsistent, right? Like if you look at the restricted that are doing well, it's all these consistent restricted. Miraidon, incredibly consistent. Calyrex is both of them, incredibly consistent, right? In fact, the only outlier on that path is that Kyogre that relies on that Origin Pulse. But a lot of those Kyogre teams will still have, the Water Spout for the 100%. They always have that, at very least, consistent upside for the most part, outside of, like the Oliver Escalin team there with the Origin Pulse Calm Mind, right? But a lot of these teams, they all have that, their upside, their big piece that's going to be consistent. And that's what we don't see in Groudon. And I think that hurts too much at a high level of play in a single restricted format. I think you can go ahead and gamble on that in a double restricted format. I think Groudon's going to be fantastic again once we get back to double restricted, strictly because it's like all of a sudden it doesn't need to be that guy all the time. I can miss this Precipice Blades because I still have a Shadow Rider in the back. I think there's a lot to be said about double restricted. That's a whole other conversation. But I think for right now, it's just so volatile in an already volatile format. It's not a good look for Groudon, but I don't know, it's cool. It can do things. It does have decent matchups, but
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Um, well, another thing that I'm noticing as I'm looking through is like how well like some of the best teams at Worlds are still performing. Like
yeah,
there's a Miraidon team that we already taled about, but then the Miraidon like Dondozo team that got top 8 at Worlds still doing super well, and it won the Merida regional. I've tried this team. It feels very 2-2-2, and I don't know, like it is hard to use. I don't know. I
yes.
personally think it's like difficult to use. I did well with it, but like I also like just like it was either a hot streak or a complete cold streak, and I would just get crushed. But it is still doing well somehow. Um, and then I think the first VR tour there was like the NJ11's like
hmm
Reggio Cagliari's team that's still doing well.
It's still
So
around. Yep.
it's I don't know, like I feel like this format is so like you can pick up a team from kind of any any of the top teams from really any of the Reg G
hmm
tours, and they're probably still very good. Like I think if you're still looking for a team for UIC, you can kind of just look at any of the top 8 teams from Worlds, from any of the past regionals, and really run the same exact thing without or with minor tweaks, and it seems like people are still having great success with it, which is pretty impressive. I feel like normally we have formats where they like develop where you kind of feel like teams get outdated after a while, but
Hmm.
that doesn't seem to be the case with this format. Why do you feel like that is?
Once again, just nature of restricted formats. You'll see it in double restricted as well. Every restricted format I've ever played, we see these teams, and it's not necessarily at times like, oh my goodness. In this case, it's kind of weird because it is like just a straight up six. But like back in the
Yeah,
day, it's always you're gonna see the concept of the team. It's going to be around, right? How you want to close it off. I mean, it's kind of irrelevant, and it's just really the matchups you think you're gonna end up playing against. But a lot of the times in these
yeah,
restricted formats, right, those cores are just so strong. It doesn't matter what people do, right? Like, take a look at Calyrex Raging Bolt, right? Like, those two, it doesn't really matter. Like, yeah, they're not like on everybody's radar right now. But if you were to tell me that you were going to EUIC with Calyrex Raging Bolt, I would never look at you and go, "Oh my goodness, that's a terrible idea." It's probably a great idea. You could probably win the regional, the event with it, right? Like,
yeah,
there's just so many of these like super super strong cores in these restricted formats that, yeah, there's still meta development, and yeah, you change maybe a couple moves, a couple speed tiers, a couple Pokemon at the back on the back half of the team. But the majority of the cores are so well built for each other that there's not a lot of room to play. And if you take a look at something like the Aerobega team, the Miraidon stuff there, it's not going anywhere. That core is broken. It's just so good. No matter how good of a matchup you want to make into that team, you still have to think when you play against it. So
yeah,
I think anybody that's really does really well with any of the teams that are popular just knows the team really really well, and they know how to play their difficult matchups, right? Like, you can do well with anything if as long as the team is, I don't know, I don't want to say as long as the team is proven, right? But if the team is good and it has that backbone, if you know how to play the game, you'll be fine.
yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Um, what would you give as your top three, I'd say, restricteds most likely to win the UIC?
Most likely to win EUIC,
Yeah,
uh, Shadow Rider, Ice Rider.
yeah,
Uh, I want to say Miraidon, but I really don't think Miraidon actually wins the EUIC because the way I look at it, and it's just those six. If I think of a Miraidon team that's going to win, it's going to be the Aerobega six, and because
yeah,
of that, it's like everybody at the top level should know how to beat those pretty consistently, I would think. So I could see it getting finals, but I don't think Miraidon's ever going to actually win the event unless some new crazy Miraidon variant hits the field that I've never seen before. But I'm actually going to say Zammy. I still think Zamazenta could matchup check its way through the regional, or through the, sorry, I keep
yeah,
forgetting it's not a regional, through the international, and just
yeah,
end up winning. So I'm gonna go either of the horses and then Zam, but a lot lower on the Zam part, like horse, big gap Zam.
yeah. Okay, fair. I'm right there with you with Cali Shadow. I feel like just playing on ladder and stuff. Like I feel like I'm getting the vibe that Cali Shadow, like people are preparing their teams to bring Cali Shadow, and I think it's going to do really well. So I would also put Cali Shadow one. I I am gonna put Miraidon too.
Okay.
I think that Miraidon, like, and maybe I'm a little influenced by how well it's doing in these VR tours, which, like, I don't know how much I should read into that, but I also just think that, like, people aren't giving up on Miraidon. Like the people are just consistently running it still, and I think there's enough good players that are running it and comfortable with it that I think it has like a pretty decent chance that like there's gonna be some cracked player that is just really comfortable with Miraidon, and maybe with like an adjustment or two. Like I think we've seen Riley Factura has been running the same Iron Crown Miraidon Guts Ursa Luna team forever, and he's gotten really comfortable with that. There's the I want to get there. The Nielsen brothers, they've
Yep.
both been running like this Blood Moon Ride-On team, Sneasler team that they've been running it and doing super well in these VR tours. And they've been super consistent with it. So I think there's going to be like enough good players that are just so invested in Ride-On that I think it has a really good shot.
That's fair.
Um, And then I'm like, I think I'm between like, I think probably Cali Ice is the third option for me, but I also am kind of with you where I feel like, I don't know. I feel like even if I would just, I may put just, excuse me, I might just put Zom at third just because I think Michael Kelch might like just
Yeah,
go crazy again.
exactly,
You
right?
know?
Like if I'm looking at the people that are playing Zom, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
not
It's
that there's a
like
guarantee that Michael Kelch is even going to walk in with Zom, but given
right.
track record and past events, you can kind of lean
Yeah,
towards that. You've
yeah,
got to at least be prepared for him to have it.
yeah. There's definitely like, I feel like there's you can categorize players or top players in like two categories for Reg G, where it's like there's a group that's just invested in their restricted. Like
Yeah.
they have a restricted that they chose early on, and that's the one that they've been like grinding, maybe since before Worlds, and they're just getting super comfortable with it. I feel like Michael falls into that category with Zom, where he's just been, so freaking good with Zom and has been consistent with it and has continued to use it. And then there's players that are like, all right, I'm gonna switch it up, try to make a meta call or just try to build like a, crack team. It doesn't matter what restricted I need to use, and maybe that's more of like the Shiliang Tang, Justin Tang. They ran, Kyogre at NAIC, and I forget what they ran at. I think they might have run Kyogre again at Worlds or something else, but yeah, they just kind of changed it up. So I feel like we're gonna have those two camps, but the camp where you see like okay they're invested in this restricted, you kind of bet on the player a little bit more too, where it's like
Yeah.
I could see some of these players, I could even see Kyogre definitely making a big run as well. I think that would
Yep.
probably be
I
somewhere.
forgot Kyogre existed when I was answering the question. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah, I feel like Kyogre has like a pretty like especially there's Oliver Asklund and like there's just some really good
Yeah.
players that are invested in Kyogre as well. I think Kyogre has like a really really good shot. I would be curious to see. I mean, we didn't even mention Koraidon. Koraidon won this VR tournament,
it
and like
it's
it's
not
been kind of
gonna
doing
win an
well.
international. It'll get close.
No,
There'll be a couple. I think
yeah,
there'll be at least one in top 16,
I agree.
but
Yeah,
I don't think it's winning.
yeah. It feels like the restricted that's never gonna win, but is always gonna have like, again that there's that group of people that's like they're all super good and they're really believe in Koraidon, but it just feels like it has like a top four ceiling, a top eight ceiling, like something like that, where it's like it gets close and then you realize it's Koraidon and it just doesn't do enough.
Yeah.
All right, I want to transition a little bit to a game. So this is something we tried out a couple episodes ago, but have a list of 10 mons for you, and you get three questions to narrow it down to guess which mon doesn't belong and what the list is of.
Okay.
So the mons, and I think we'll put on the screen as
Yeah.
well, but it's Dondozo, Guts Ursaluna, Okidogi, Galarian Zapdos, Smeargle, Clefairy, Heatran, Iron Bundle, Hatterene, and Regidrago.
Okay. This is actually kind of a weird list. Right off the bat, it's one of those ones where I don't even know what I would ask. Do
Yeah, just give
you?
it vibes.
I'm trying to get something that's like actually gonna like eliminate a good chunk of Pokemon, but like this is tough.
It's a weird list. It's a
Okay,
weird
okay,
list.
okay, okay. Well, let's go. No, it doesn't even work because I don't even like. The thing is, I don't know if I ask this question. I don't know what it eliminates. I would just ask the question. Okay, okay. Real talk. Do you think this Pokemon? Well, no, I can't even say that because if I ask if the Pokemon would be a good chef, what does that even eliminate? Like,
I'll give you an answer to that one. Let's see. All right.
all right, all right, all
So I
right,
think
all
it'd
right.
be a
What
good.
Which of these would the Pokemon allowed still be a good chef? Like, would the Pokemon you're looking for be a
I
good chef?
think I think the Pokemon would be good at making like very simple things and would be an eager helper in the kitchen, but wouldn't be the main chef. Like wouldn't be a good
Yeah, yeah,
main
okay,
chef.
okay. Okay, okay. So kind of like the sous chef sort of thing. So Dozo's probably gone, right? That would mean Dozo belongs on that list. That's correct.
This is
Oh,
your
come
elimination.
on. Nah. All right. Does this Pokemon... Okay,
You
here we
gotta
go.
narrow it down.
Does this Pokemon learn Follow Me?
Does this Pokemon learn Follow Me? Yes.
Okay, so the one that doesn't belong learns Follow Me.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so that leaves me with what? Just either Smeargle or Clefairy that doesn't belong?
Yeah, that's a good question. Narrowed it down quickly.
Well, once you said it was going to be a helper in the kitchen, and I said, then there's only two things that have Follow Me. It was like, okay. Okay, how else do I close this off? The thing is, I still have to give you a reason why after, and I have no clue. I mean, the thing is, I can ask whatever I want, in theory, because I could just be like, oh, is this Pokemon a fairy type? And it would just give me the answer, right? But then I figured the fact of the matter is, I still have to figure out why. Okay, so is this Pokemon that doesn't belong a fairy type?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so Clefairy is the one that doesn't belong. I mean, it's kind of a little of a, you know, a little bit of an easy way to get to that. But the problem is, I still wouldn't even begin to tell you why. Okay. So Heatran has definitely won a VR tour. I don't know what about Iron Bundle and Hatterene. They've done nothing. I can't see them having won a VR tour, so that can't be the reason. Clefairy's won a regional though. So have some of the other ones. Actually, have they?
I'll give you a hint or direction.
Okay.
It has to do with results, like one turn.
Results of one tournament?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is going to be something like Clefairy was the only Pokemon not in top cut at whatever regional is what's going to happen here. I don't think there was a Clefairy in VR number 1. So I'm going to go with there was no Clefairy. Everything else belongs in Top Cut at VR number 1, but there was no Clefairy in Top Cut at VR number 1.
So since we were talking about UIC, I thought it'd be fun to look back at UIC 24.
Ah, no, I got scammed.
Only one that didn't make top 16 at UIC 2024, which is kind of like
that's kind of crazy.
So many random
some of these mons though, like why is there a Hatterene? Why is there a Regidrago? Why is there an Iron Bundle? Bro's been gone.
Yeah. Galarian Zapdos? Like what? Like
what?
It's I don't even know what was going on at UIC last year, but Clef ended up at 18th, so just outside. But I thought it was funny that like out of all these mons, Clef is one of the ones that you'd think would definitely have made top 16 at UIC, but nope, there was it was a weird meta, but I feel like we're gonna have a lot of like I think we're gonna have some cool niche mons do well at UIC this year as well. I mean, like I was like I don't know if you have any that looking through the VR tours or any of the past tours, but like some of your favorite like one of your favorite like niche picks. I saw like a Glacier on here, and I thought that was pretty like
Iron
hilarious.
Defense Body Press, I assume, right?
I have to find it again.
I'm
think
pretty.
So.
It should be. That's what you use it for, right? You're gonna go with the base Glacier. You go IDBP, and basically you wall out the opposing Calorexes. That's kind of your job there.
Yeah. It would. Yep. Terra Water, Icicle Crash, Body Press, Iron Defense, and it was on a Koraidon team. So
yeah.
Makes sense. But any like niche picks that have been like standing out to you that you think are pretty fun?
Okay, I'm gonna go with Moltres, but I'm gonna go regular Moltres, like the Firebird. Okay, so hear me out. Okay. I don't know where this has been, but like I know there's like someone did well with it at a Vancouver local recently, and then it was also brought to a couple MPA sets as well. So like I think the team initiated like it was initially from like Japan or a Japanese creator, if my memory serves me correct. I could be very wrong. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But it's like Zamazenta Moltres stuff, and it's like kind of funny. So like that's kind of my niche pick. I think regular Moltres could do something.
That's pretty cool. I like that. Okay. All right. Well, looking forward now to this next weekend. Let's give a couple predictions. So first, start with I think it'd be good since there's. You want to do over unders on Pagos or Cali Ice, or we can do both.
We
But
can do
which
both.
what do you? Okay, okay. What would you set the lineup for over under Pagos in top 16? I'd say like what, 0.5, right? Like one Pagos
To
versus.
set the actual over under, you could
Yeah, I
set.
feel like
The
I feel
thing
like
is, setting it
if
at
there was
point five,
one,
I think it's just too easy to say there's gonna at least be one.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's zero. I don't know.
All right, so
I
you want to
like
set it there and just be on opposite sides? I'm fine with
yeah.
that.
All right. I'll take the bet on zero. You can go
I'll
over
take I'll
on
take
point
over
five.
point five.
I
I'll
don't know.
take the over, all day.
Okay. And, and then what do you want to set the line at for Cali Ice?
Cali Ice,
Or
I think like in top 16, I think like 3.5 is probably a fair number, maybe 4.5.
yeah, I hmm,
I'll take an if
I
it's
would take
four.
the
I'll take an under on 3.5.
you'll take the under on 3.5.
Yeah,
Okay,
just
I'll
to
take
make
the
it
over on
interesting.
the.
I'll take the under on it.
We'll keep we'll keep a tally on how who's winning the bets over the course of the year. I think that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll let you take the
okay,
tally.
cool.
I'll
And
be a little busy.
yeah, that sounds good. Okay, and then bold prediction.
Well, I don't have much of a bold prediction in all honesty, so I'm just gonna go with. You know what? I think I'm gonna go along the lines of Joe UX9 wins the tour. Joe UX9 finally gets an international
Oh,
win.
that would be pretty cool. That would be pretty big. Um, okay, interesting. That makes me kind of want to call out the winner too. 'Cause I feel like it's probably gonna be. My guess is gonna be it's gonna be Michael Kelch, but
Okay.
that's also like, hmm. Yeah, I'll say Michael Kelch wins the tour.
Okay, but now
I
along
think
now when we're making these calls, do we think Marco wins another one?
that would be crazy.
Right? What
If
about that
Marco,
storyline?
pose the scenario. If Marco won his, at that point, what would be his third, fourth,
I don't
third
know the exact
international?
number. I'd have to go back and fact check, but it would be high.
He's won LAIC. He's won
Hasn't he won every
LAIC.
single? He's won 3, right? He's won Europe, LIC, and NAIC, right? He's won one of each, I think.
Did he win NAIC? I think he won LAIC twice.
Oh, possibly. I don't know. I don't remember. He's won a lot.
Yeah.
That's all there is.
He wins his fourth internats, and this guy's like like top 16 at Worlds, consistent like top 32 at World. Like, I don't know. We'd have to have a start. Like, I feel like right now, it's the Wolf has it's a clear gulf between Wolf and like the next greatest in terms of accomplishments. But I'm curious. Like, at what point would you start to say like, okay, like Marco is getting up there and with a world championship after all these internets, like you start to make a real case of okay, is he like that like closing in on that number 2 slot or like somewhere close to that? That would be pretty nuts.
Yeah, I would put him. I would put him in the conversation. I think he's already in the conversation, personally, myself. He's won 3 internets. Like, you can't tell me he's not one of the greatest players of all time.
Oh, agreed. Totally agreed. I mean, that would be pretty nuts. That would be a cool storyline. If Marco won his 4th internets, that would be a very cool storyline. A lot of cool storylines to watch this weekend. I get super excited to watch internets just because there's so many good players and come out of it with like, I mean, we could also come out of it with, last year we had Tim Edwards in finals, someone who had never made finals of hadn't even made finals of his own locals, which was crazy at that time, and ended up making finals of internets. And then obviously NAC we had Patrick Connor, so it could also have another story like that. Super excited. So
catch me at the 4-4 tables. That's a fun storyline.
No, we are all rooting for you. I cannot wait to see what you do this weekend.
I told you I'm gonna be at the 4-4 tables. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I'm gonna go with 4-4 and somehow get championship points. Watch. I don't even think it's possible.
Well, I'd love to see it. I mean, you're doing pretty well for yourself in the Worlds race right now, so we'd love to see you get some points and continue in there.
We'll see what's up. I don't know. I'd like to hope I can day 2. I've never day 2'd in internets, but I've also I haven't gone to 2. I've only gone to 2. So.
Here we go. Well, this first for everything. So excited. Um, okay, well, I think that's kind of gonna wrap it up for us. But thanks everyone for listening. Let us know if you beat Ryan at the game and figured out what the list is of. And super excited to watch EUIC this weekend and rooting for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
See ya.